Housing is at the core of this government's agenda, and it is the defining issue for our people with profound social and economic impacts. Having a home is a basic and essential need in life. We are determined to do whatever it takes to address this challenge.
Housing targets, will the government finally hit them, or will they be missed again? It's the major political question yet again this forthcoming year.
It's estimated there's a shortfall of homes of around 250,000.
The Land Development Agency, which is tasked with delivering affordable housing on new sites, is getting an additional €2.5 billion.
We delivered homes at scale previously. It was activating the private developers right across the country to deliver those homes. And that might be a big developments in Dublin City, for example, but that's also in our provincial towns and in our smaller villages.
Land that's zoned residential. In other words, planners have decided that this land is suitable for housing development. It's generally land on the edges of towns and cities.
The rezoning and development of areas on the edge of urban centres and rural locations has fundamentally altered the way that people relate to and experience these spaces. Kilternan sits at this threshold, a place shaped by change, now changing faster than its history can remain visible. When once rural places are reshaped for urban life, what happens to the meaning embedded in them? What remains visible when change moves faster than memory? Kilternan was once a rural village, set among farmland and forestry on the foothills of the Dublin and Wicklow Mountains. It is made up of a series of townlands: Ballybeta, Glenamuck North and South, Jamestown and the Kilternan Domain, to name a few. These names reflect earlier ways of knowing and organising the land. But the landscape itself reaches much further back. During the last ice age, glacial movement carved and scoured this area, shaping the valleys and slopes that define it today. To the south, along the Scalp Road, granite outcrops over 400 million years old remain exposed at the surface. In recent years, this landscape has begun to change again, as land once used for farming has been steadily reconfigured into housing. As the land was shaped over deep time, it was also named and repeatedly renamed by those who moved through it. From the 14th century onwards, the name Kilternan appears in written records under a range of different spellings. By the late 20th century, Kilternan with two I's became the spelling used in official documents. Even still, conflict arises today between local spellings and official recordings. Kilternan, without the extra I, remains the most commonly used form. Like many Irish place names, this variation reflects a longer process, as an Irish name was recorded, anglicised and re-recorded through official systems, gradually reshaping its written form. Irish place names did more than label land. They carried knowledge of how places were used, understood and remembered. The Irish name for this area is Kilternan, with Kil being the Irish for church, and Tiernan, on the other hand, is an individual's name, with the literal translation being the Church of Tiernan. The origin of this place name can be traced to the ruins of a church on Bishop's Lane, when surrounded by a graveyard, a holy well and a cross slab. The church is traditionally associated with St. Tiernan, the patron saint of Crossmolina, County Galway, where he is believed to have lived during the early Christian period around the 6th century. The site later fell into ruin following the dissolution of the monasteries in the 16th century, but this is not the only way the name has been understood. An alternative interpretation suggests that Kil may not derive from church, but instead coil, meaning wood. In this reading, the name refers to not a building, but the Tiernans would. In pre-Christian Ireland, woods were not marginal spaces. They were central to how people lived, moved and understood their surroundings. Even at its origin, the meaning of the name remains layered, shaped by language, belief and repetition over time. And long before churches, records or place names, these landscapes are already being used, moved through and inhabited. Traces embedded within the land show glimpses of previous interactions. Kilternan and its wider area have been inhabited for the last 6,000 years. Stone tools recovered at Carrick mines are from the Mesolithic period. Their presence points to early hunter-gatherer activity in the area. These were not settled communities, but people moving through the landscape seasonally, following food, shelter and water. By the Neolithic period, their relationship to the land began to change. Megalithic tombs and structures appear across the surrounding hills and valleys, marking places of burial, gathering and repeat return. Within the Kilternan domain, a portal tomb was uncovered alongside stone tools, including a chert arrowhead and a series of scrapers. These artifacts tell a story of a community becoming more closely tied to place, with early farming now shaping the landscape. The Kilternan dolmen, one of the largest in Ireland, dates to between 4,000 and 2,500 years BC, suggesting that this area had become a place of lasting significance. At Ballyedmund a wedge tomb marks a later transition, straddling the boundary between the Neolithic and the Bronze Age. A stark reminder that change has always been gradual, layered and uneven. From the Bronze Age, decorated boulders bearing cup marks were found in Carrick mines. The true meaning of these marks remain unclear, with some explanations suggesting that they are an art motif. Ringforts can be seen scattered across the area, serving as protection, ritual sites and enclosures for animals. In local folklore, these ringforts are said to belong to the Milesians, the legendary ancestors of the Irish people. Upon arriving to Ireland, they defeated the supernatural race of gods and goddesses, the Tuatha who retreated into the other world, becoming the fairy folk who now live in the fairy mounds. Whether understood through archaeology or through story, these traces point to a landscape that has been inhabited, returned to and reimagined for millennia. Over time, the presence on the land became more fixed. During the early medieval period, the area surrounding the church ruins became the centre. The church structure is part of a wider network of early ecclesiastical sites scattered across Dunleary and Rathdown. At the same time, Kilternan and its adjacent townlands formed part of the royal estate of Oberon. Land was now becoming ordered and formalised, along with ownership being recorded. Even though the area is becoming increasingly managed and mapped, it did not stop features of the area fading into obscurity. Documentary evidence suggests that a castle was once present within Kilternan, but today its exact location remains unknown. Emerging from the medieval period, Kilternan lay beyond the Pale. Ditches and other defensive structures were used to fortify the British-controlled territory of the Pale. The defences were constructed to defend against the raids from the so-called Wild Irish who roamed the Wicklow Mountains. The landscape was no longer simply inhabited, it was ordered, defended and exposed to conflict. By the 19th century, the area was transformed once again. Industry had arrived. Cotton mills and a paper factory brought employment and movement to the area. In 1849, the area saw the establishment of its first post office, recognising its important link between Dublin city centre and the southern extent of the country. To commemorate its establishment, the post office's distance from the general post office in Dublin was carved into the Kilternan Bridge. This once peripheral landscape had now begun to join the national network. The Ballycor's lead mining and smelting centre opened in the early 1800s. A vast flue chimney cut across the hillside, carrying toxic fumes towards the chimney stack and away from the works below. The fumes weren't dispersed effectively, leading to the surrounding valley becoming known as Death Valley, as illness and mortality rose among those living nearby. As the original church site on Bishop's Lane fell into ruin, Kilgobbin took over the parish. The structure too eventually entered disrepair. The development of a new Church of Ireland building was ordered. Following a year of construction, the church was consecrated in 1826. In the 20th century, Kilternan remained active, with industry still in operation and large country houses marking the landscape. During the War of Independence, a house along Ballycorse Road, close to the mining and smelting works, was used as a base by British intelligence. It was repeatedly attacked by the Wicklow IRA, resulting in the death of British soldiers. The area experienced population growth following the First World War. In 1929, a new church, Our Lady of the Wayside, known locally as the Blue Church, was built to serve this growing population. By the late 20th century, Kilternan Golf and Country Club emerged as a symbol of ambition and prosperity in the area. In the 1970s, it attracted notable figures, including the likes of Muhammad Ali and Sean Connery. Later it came to represent the volatility of the Celtic Tiger, as success and overreach occupied the same ground. From enclosure to estate, from industry to leisure, across centuries, the landscape continued to adapt, each layer settling over the last. Today, change no longer follows the layered and gradual flow of previous centuries. The transformation of Kilternan has reached a rate never before seen in the area, restructuring the environment overnight. Within the Laoghaire-Rathdown County Council Development Plan of 2022 to 2028, 22 and 25,000 new housing units have been identified to be built in the county to contribute to solving the country's housing crisis. Within this framework, Kilternan and Glenamuck have been identified as a new residential community, rewriting the area's rural past. Approximately 2,000 new homes are said to be developed within Kilternan itself. Much of this development is taking place on greenfield sites, turning fields into new housing developments. Lands that had been previously redrawn and zoned for residential use are now being brought into active construction. These new developments range from single-storey cottages to apartment blocks of 4 to 6 stories high, with the majority of developments expected to be between 2 and 4 stories. A new village centre is proposed, shifting the focus of the area once again. Sites are being reserved for education to accommodate for the growth and demand of school spaces already existing in the area. The creation of greenways and parklands will allow for new ways of experiencing and relating to the area. The plan is built upon the idea of a 10-minute neighbourhood where daily needs can be met within walking distance, while also emphasising sustainable transport, neighbourhood infrastructure, biodiversity and the protection of the character and the heritage of the area. The scale of change is measurable. In 2013, the local population was approximately 900. By the 2022 census, that figure had risen to just under 2,000. And during 2024, it was roughly 3,700. Under the current development plan, the population of the area is to rise over 5,000, with upper projections of 6,000. Within a generation, Kilternan is transitioning from a rural settlement on the foothills of the mountains to a planned suburban community. The landscape is being reorganised once again, not by enclosure, not by industry, but policy and projection. When once rural places are reshaped for modern life, what happens to the meaning embedded in them? What happens when change moves faster than memory? Kilternan has never been static. The land has been constantly reorganised from the time it was settled, named, defended, extracted from, and now planned. Meaning has always accumulated slowly, through repetition, through attachment, through lived experience across generations. But today the rhythm has shifted. Populations are rising within years, fields are becoming neighbourhoods within a blink of an eye. When change accelerates, memory and meaning has less time to settle. The deeper layers of place can become harder to perceive, not erased, but obscured beneath the pace of transformation. Kilternan is not unique in this. Across the country, peripheral landscapes are being reshaped to meet contemporary demands. Change is necessary. It always has been. The question is whether we recognise that we are building upon something already dense in meaning, and whether that awareness travels forward with us. Because even as new foundations are laid, the older ground remains.